This is a secure CyberConnect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information, cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our topics on this episode will be AI, deepfakes, are the here and now, and can the community and resilience stop the next cyber crisis? Today we're honoured to be joined by Heather Lowrie. Heather is the founder of Resilionix, on a mission to help organisations build and strengthen cyber resilience in an increasingly complex, uncertain world. An accomplished leader within cybersecurity, technology, risk and resilience, Heather brings a distinguished career with board-level and CISO experience across high-impact organisations within both public and private sectors, including the University of Manchester, University of Edinburgh, Scottish Government, Morgan Stanley and the NatWest Group. She also contributes her expertise to several advisory boards and organisations, such as the Cyber Ed Board, Infosecurity Europe, Flow Health, the London Spear Bureau, the Chartered Institute of Information Security, Paperclip, and the ISC. She advises boards and executive teams on navigating the complexities of today's digital landscape and implementing innovative solutions to strengthen security and organisational resilience. A fellow of the Chartered Institute of Information Security, she was also recognised as the 2024 CISO of the Year at the SC Awards Europe. Heather, welcome to the Secure CyberConnect podcast, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's a privilege to be here and to speak with you both. I really admire the work that you do with the community, so it's wonderful to have the conversation with you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
No, likewise. So we'll kick things off with you. Just give us a very brief high-level overview of some of the key themes that we'll be exploring in our discussion.
So as you mentioned, Jay, we're going to speak about AI and deepfakes and what we can do in the face of the evolving threat landscape. We'll speak about allyship as well in the industry, and I know that you've got a number of other really interesting questions, so I'm looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes. One of the things that I really value about community engagement is the opportunity to have conversations with peers and with leaders in the field, and you never know what insights that you'll get out of a conversation, so it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with our conversation today.
So a couple of icebreakers that we always kick off with. We always sort of ask our guests if they could maybe just describe a significant challenge that they maybe faced in their career that ultimately shaped their views on cyber.
So I think there's been a number of significant challenges that I've faced, and I think I see every challenge as an opportunity for growth. So what I've learned through every challenge that I've dealt with in the field, whether it's dealing with a major cyber attack early into a new job or whether it's launching a national census in a changing geopolitical situation, every single challenge that I've dealt with, I've grown and learned through that, and I've strengthened and deepened the relationships that I've had with my team and with other professionals in the industry. So I think the main thing that I've learned from dealing with challenges is actually resilience, the core of resilience. It's how you grow, you learn, you develop, you share your learnings with the community, exactly as you do with Secure CyberConnect. And that's any challenge that you face, it's an opportunity for growth. So I faced a number of different challenges, and I've always viewed them as an opportunity to grow, to contribute my skills and experience, to help where I can, and also to grow and develop both personally and professionally through challenges.
Absolutely. And flipping that over, could you maybe share a mistake that you made in your career at any point, really, not necessarily just in cyber, but what lessons did you learn from that?
Yes, I think early on in my career, I didn't realise how transferable my skills were. So when I joined the industry, I went on to a graduate training programme and I was doing systems development. And I thought at that point in my career that I was a systems developer. I knew the languages, that I knew that was what I did. That was me in that box. And, I was developing down that pathway. So what I didn't have was the breadth of vision that I have now, the opportunity to see that your pathway doesn't need to be straight. You can look for opportunities to grow, to learn, to develop. You can go sideways, you can go up the way, you can go back the way. It's really about growing and learning and developing, and it's your own professional journey. So I think looking back at earlier stages of my career, I wish that I'd realised that earlier, and it took me quite a long time to learn that. So I think if I was speaking to anyone at the start of their career now, it would be to believe in your own potential, don't limit yourself, and really look to grow throughout your whole professional journey and look at all the different opportunities that are available to you. I've never taken a job for the job title. It's always been for the opportunity to learn and to contribute. And I think if you have that mindset in your career, that stands you in good stead. And I wish that I'd learned earlier that there were opportunities out there, and I didn't, restrict my thinking to what I thought I was capable of doing at that time.
So, getting into things a bit more in terms of AI, deepfakes, digital threats in general, we know AI is transforming pretty much everything. Deepfakes, AI-powered attacks increasingly on the rise, and it's important that we all understand how we separate fact from fiction and defend the truth, if you will. AI-generated audio and video are clearly indistinguishable now from real content to very certainly the untrained eye or ear. And many of these tools are accessible to the public, some requiring little to no technical skill. You're going to be tackling this matter at InfoSec Europe, which is certainly going to be a good one to be at. But for those of our audience that don't already know that much about deepfakes, could you explain in more detail exactly what deepfake is and why is this so important?
So I think, as you've touched on, Jay, a deepfake is a synthetic media file, typically video or audio, that has been generated or altered using artificial intelligence techniques, especially deep learning techniques, to convincingly mimic people, real people, saying or doing things that they never said or did. So that's the challenge that we have. It's important for us to recognize that, because deepfakes can erode trust in what we see and hear. They can create very powerful tools for misinformation, and they can undermine the social foundations that we have, such as journalism, law, and democratic discourse. So it's really important that we're alive to this threat, and the organizations are investing in things like authenticity infrastructure, tools to verify sources, to trace digital provenance, and to help us to build digital trust at scale.
I think of all the threats we've faced, deepfake is probably the most worrying one that we've come across so far. And we don't want to sound too much of a doom monger, but are we already losing the battle against deepfakes? Is there hope yet? As it certainly feels like the stakes are very high. And how fast can we scale detection and authentication and build legal frameworks that have got some teeth to them?
It's an excellent question, Jane. I think, as you say, the misuse of generative AI and social engineering, especially through voice cloning and tailored phishing content, is a very real threat. It's very subtle, it's scalable, and it often slips under the radar of our traditional detection techniques. We tend to focus on the spectacular, but it's often the mundane and believable manipulations that can cause the most damage. And it's really important that we're alert to this. It's certainly not a lost battle, and I would encourage us not to think of it as a battle. I think what we're dealing with is the challenges of technological change, and it's certainly a set of very fast-moving challenges. With technological change, negatives, challenges that we have to deal with, where dual-use technologies can be used for harm, but we also have great opportunities and benefits that we can reap as a society. So when we think about the use of AI for good, there's so much good that we can do. If we think about how AI enables leveling up, it enables people who have accessibility needs to partake in society. It enables us all to communicate. There are great benefits that we can see from AI, not just within the cybersecurity domain. But it's really important that we're aware of the rate of innovation, because that means that malicious actors can stay a step ahead. But there's hope. There's definitely hope, and I would point to some really concrete examples of that. So I think through digital literacy, authenticity frameworks, AI governance frameworks, a combination of regulatory and technical safeguards, we can ensure that we're moving forward responsibly, that we're innovating responsibly, and fundamentally that we retain that sense of civic integrity and that shared sense of truth that you rightly touched on in your question.
Yeah. No, it's an excellent point that we do need a much more balanced conversation on AI. I think because we're all in security, the narrative is typically one of fear and negativity, and I think there's a huge amount of positives to come out of this.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, isn't it, for security professionals? We do need to be thinking about worst case scenario planning, but we also need to be thinking about the other scenarios. So I think what we're trying to do is to move forward with foresight and with strategic insight into the challenges that we face, to think about how we adopt new technologies responsibly, And that really requires that foresight and that scenario planning. So not just thinking about the worst case scenarios, but also thinking about the other scenarios and how we can get the benefits of those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And outside of deepfakes, what are some of the other most underestimated and I guess concerning AI-driven cyber threats that people are not particularly understanding or just ignoring?
So I think when we think about AI-powered cyber threats, it's really indistinguishable. So I think we need to be thinking about the threat landscape more broadly, regardless of whether it's AI powered or not AI powered. Think about the threats that we face. Go back to the basics of threat modeling. So I think when we think about the threats that we have currently as a society, I would point to things like pre-positioning attacks that we see on critical infrastructure. Some of that's AI powered, some of it's not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that we're able to recognize the threats, we're able to assess them, and we're able to think strategically about how we deal with them. So in that case, for example, where we're dealing with persistence in our networks, we need to be thinking about how we build resilience architecturally using architectural frameworks and so on. So I would encourage us not just to think about the headline grabbing threats such as AI taking over the world. I think there are very real threats there that we need to be dealing with deliberately and consciously. But at the same time, we need to be thinking about the threat landscape more broadly and some of the threats that we face currently to our critical infrastructure, how we can build resilience in the face of pre-positioning and persistence on our networks.
I appreciate you sharing your perspectives there, Heather. And I certainly believe it's not just a technological challenge, it's also obviously a human-centric one. And we spoke briefly earlier about collaboration. Allyship, for instance, is not just a buzzword. It's the foundation for real change in cybersecurity. Unfortunately, not everyone's actually walking the talk. So keen to gain your perspective in terms of what genuine allyship looks like and why do people actually fail at this?
So I think it's a great question, Warren. I think I tend not to think in terms of allyship personally because I think about inclusive leadership and I think about working together as a community and collaboration and so on. But I think allyship is also a really important concept. And to me, it means consistent, deliberate action to remove barriers and to create opportunity. And I think it's not just about performative gestures, as you've touched on, it's about showing up, about listening, about using your platform to amplify others, especially when it's uncomfortable. So I think it's really important that we're all thinking, and I think that comes back to the principles of inclusive leadership, inclusion, not just diversity, but also thinking about inclusion. And I think allyship, to me, genuine allyship is consistent, deliberate action to remove barriers and to create opportunity. And it's not something that is always seen. It's not show business. It's not something that you're always recognized for, but it's something that we do consistently and deliberately in our everyday lives. And I think it's really important that we hold ourselves accountable to that. So it's something that we're accountable to ourselves to ensure that we're consistently and deliberately removing barriers and creating opportunity for others.
I appreciate you sharing. And do you think that the industry as a whole is perhaps still stuck in that talk rather than action stage, especially when it comes to diversity, for example?
I think it's a great question. I wouldn't say it's specifically the cybersecurity industry. I think as a society, we've got societal challenges, and part of what we commit to as professionals is using our skills and experience in order to help wider society as well as the profession that we're part of. And I think inclusion, I would always encourage us to think about inclusion. Inclusion raises standards by bringing in diverse perspectives, by improving decision making, and by better reflecting the societies that we serve. So I think that in order to have modern, high-functioning security teams, we absolutely need inclusion. I've seen that in my own practice. You cannot be a high-functioning, modern security team unless you're leading inclusively. So I think it's really important that we're thinking about inclusion. I think that applies not just to our industry and to our practice as security professionals, it also benefits wider society.
And how do you respond to the critics that perhaps claim inclusion is lowering standards?
I'm not aware of any of those critics personally, so I have to say personally, no one's ever said to me that leading inclusively has lowered standards, only the opposite. What I would point to is the research that shows that inclusive leadership raises performance. I would also point to my own lived experience as a chief information security officer, as a senior leader within cybersecurity. I've certainly seen the benefit of inclusive leadership in my own practice, and I know that there are examples where without leading inclusively, without having psychological safety in my teams, I would not have been able to drive the outcomes that I was able to achieve. So I think if anyone wanted to have that conversation, I'd be very happy to have it. But I have to say, no one's ever said to me that leading inclusively has lowered standards.
No, that's good to hear. And we've mentioned community a few times, of course. Cybersecurity isn't a solo sport. We've discussed that with a number of our guests in the past, and we strongly believe in building strong communities that uplift and empower both individuals and organisations. And as we've talked through this session, you've certainly achieved quite a lot on your journey, and we understand there's more ahead of you. So why should senior leaders make time for mentoring and giving back? Why is that important?
I think it's important for many reasons. Fundamentally, cybersecurity is a team sport. That is absolutely undeniable. Information technology more generally is also a team sport. It doesn't matter how great you are at programming or at pen testing. You can't build a secure enterprise scale system unless you're actually collaborating with others. And you can't defend against the threats that we face today unless you're collaborating with others. So I think fundamentally it's a team sport. So the reason to mentor, to give back, is in order to grow the capability that we have more broadly within UK PLC, also within our industry. So it's about helping to develop capabilities, to develop talent, to grow our industry. It's also about personally, it can be very rewarding personally to give back, to see others developing. Often it's better to give than to receive. And I think that's a mindset that I've always tried to have in my own life and career. How can I help others, whether it's through mentoring or whether it's through using my professional skills and experience in the workplace? But I think mentoring can be very rewarding, both for the mentee and also for the mentor. You often learn a lot yourself, and I think reverse mentoring can be very helpful as well. Fundamentally, it's about valuing diverse perspectives and creating space for diverse perspectives and seeing the importance of that, especially in a field like ours that is really fast moving. It changes frequently. So you have to be listening to others. You really have to be creating space for diverse perspectives. And often within a security team, it can be the new entrant who's just fresh out of uni or college or has been learning skills themselves that can have the perspective that you need. So in such a fast moving field, it's absolutely important that you're always listening to others. And I think mentoring is a great opportunity to do that and to build relationships across the industry, across different levels of experience. Doesn't matter whether you're at the most senior level or the most junior level, you're able to come together to have conversations with purpose. And I think I've found mentoring very, very rewarding personally. And also, I hope it's been valuable to the individuals that I've had the privilege of mentoring as well.
Well, that's good, and it's something that we work towards as well. We've got a number of initiatives that revolve around mentoring, and to your point on that mutual exchange, it can be a learning curve for both mentor and mentee at the same time. It allows you to get depth. And you're involved in many communities. We do commend you for that. But your involvement with the ISC2, for instance, how can individuals that join communities such as that help supercharge their careers?
So I think one top tip that I would give is to look for the volunteering opportunities that are available. So the professional bodies like ISC2, like BCS and others, they all advertise their volunteering opportunities openly. So you can go onto the website and you can see the volunteering opportunities. And I think it's great at any stage of your career to look for opportunities that align with your interests. It's a great way to develop your skills as well as giving back. So I think we all have continuing professional education credits that we have to earn and to maintain. And we recognise the value of volunteering opportunities. And I think just looking at the websites, looking for those opportunities, applying for anything that you're interested in, it's a great way to keep your skills up to date and also to build your network within the professional bodies and to give back to society more broadly.
And I know you've touched on the benefits, of course, in working with communities and collaborating, but could you perhaps share briefly a personal story where community support has made a difference to you?
Yes, I think that as you move between different roles in your career, so we all have our own career journey that I've been working now for over 25 years in professional roles. And as you move through different roles in your career, your community, your network is always with you. So that's something that stays with you. You change employers, you change organizations, you have different goals and objectives at different periods in your life. But your community, people call it networking, but I prefer to think of it as community. Your community is with you throughout your career journey. So your career journey is something that's personal to you. Your professional growth and development is something it's something that's of value that you maintain throughout your life. And I think the networks and the community that you have been really important. And I've certainly found that throughout my career journey. When I look back now at the length of time that I've in the technology industry, in the cybersecurity industry, I've personally found my networks and my community to be really valuable as I've moved between roles and opportunities. I've worked in different industries, different sectors. My community, my network has always been with me, and it's always growing as well. And I think that's the thing that I love as well. What I've loved most about working in technology is the opportunity to work with really great people. So you get to meet really amazing people, and this is a great opportunity to have a conversation with great people as well. And you're always doing that. You're always able to meet new people and to build and to grow your networking community. So I personally have always valued having the relationships that I've built throughout my career from people that have worked with me, that have known me, and also the new relationships that I'm continuously building as I move forward, because that relationships, people, it's all about people at the end of the day.
Definitely. And do you feel that it should be a combination of online communities or in person? Appreciating not everyone's got the time to get out in person.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Warren, and I think that's absolutely critical. So when we need to think about accessibility and inclusion when we're thinking about communities, and it's really important that our networks and our communities are open and accessible and everyone can participate. And I think having online opportunities helps with that as well. Not everyone can take part in in-person events, especially timing doesn't always work. People might have caring responsibilities. They might not be able to take part in in-person events for any reason. So I think just having as many different channels available as possible is important. I think particularly for public sector organisations where there's the public sector duty of equality, we need to think about how services are accessible very broadly. But I think we can all do that as well, regardless of whether we work in the public or the private sector. All make our communities as accessible as possible and invite people in. Always create space for others. I love that idea when you're at a networking event and you're in a circle of people talking and you always leave a space for someone else to join you and to come into the
I
conversation.
love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah. So we do that in the physical world, and I think we can do that in the online world as well, always creating space for others to come in and join. And that's the way that I think about it.
And just very briefly, what message would you give to those that perhaps gatekeep him and stopping individuals joining communities and being involved and pushing back?
So I haven't come across that personally, I have to say. I know there's a lot of conversations about gatekeeping in the industry, and I think it's important that we do think about ourselves as a professional community and we have standards and codes of conduct and so on. So I absolutely appreciate the value of that. But I think fundamentally it's always about inclusion. It's always about inviting people in. And we all have shared values and behaviours that we sign up to, and every community is inclusive within our industry, I think. So I think it's just the importance of inclusion would be the message that I would like to share there.
I appreciate you sharing.
Absolutely. And talking about a bit more about digital safety within the sort of younger generation. And we've talked about this quite a lot with some of our guests ever since we had Wendy Goucher on, obviously talking about early years, and it's a big topic for Warren and I within the Secure Cyber Connect community. I think that the balance is, how do schools and parents address online safety without creating too much fear within younger minds?
It's such a critical question, Jay, and I think we see the Online Safety Act now, which is very, very welcome, and a lot of great work that's going on in government and in the regulatory space with Ofcom. And I think that's great. I think how, as parents and as citizens, we can contribute to that. That's an absolutely critical question. So I think there's an element of safeguarding from a school's perspective. So when we think about schools and the education system, there's a question about how we can safeguard children. So not just thinking about security, but also thinking about safeguarding when we see some of the online harms at the moment. And I think from an educational perspective, education should empower people. So I think encouraging children and parents and all of us really to think critically, to ask questions and to build safe habits throughout our life is really important. And I'm familiar with the work that Wendy's done in that space with storytelling for early years, which I think is wonderful. And the education system, schools and so on are fully engaged in that. So I think there's teaching digital agency and digital literacy rather than just digital danger is important, but I think we need to be really, really focused as well on the online harms and the safety requirements that we have and the responsibility that we have to safeguard children as communities, as parents, and as schools and educators.
Yeah, I've got 5 nieces now officially. Another one was born actually just over 2 weeks ago, and some of them are obviously a lot older than the newborn. And they spot deepfakes, they spot things that are AI generated, and it's really encouraging. They say, "Look, Uncle, look at this."
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think
they're more switched on than we give them credit for,
Yeah.
a lot of the younger generation.
Absolutely. And I think that when we see children growing up today when the media and the information environment that we have, they will find ways to navigate that and we will learn from them as well. But I think we need to be looking at everyone across every generation and make sure that we're able to provide the support that's needed.
And where do you think we've had some of the biggest successes with governments in terms of the sort of cyber civic protection approach? And maybe, also where have we failed so far?
So I think when we think about successes, obviously in cybersecurity, there's been great success stories with the establishment of the National Cybersecurity Centre, which didn't exist 10 years ago and it's over 10 years ago. So there's been great successes there in the cybersecurity space. I think we're starting to see the same in the online safety space with the Online Safety Act 2023. And I hope what I would like to see is that online safety work becoming fully integrated with the cybersecurity work that has been going on to great effect. So when we go forward, we really need to think about online safety, misinformation, disinformation, and so on, and how we counter that at the same time as we think about cybersecurity. And really doubling down on those democratic values that we have as a society. So we always need to be, democracy is born anew in every generation. So we always need to be thinking about what democracy means to us, what the values that we hold dear are. So when we think about things like equality, we think about things like civic resilience, democratic resilience, digital literacy, and so on. These are all foundational pillars of our democratic society going forward. So I think that's where I'd like to see us converging and having these conversations about protecting civic integrity. And I think that's where we really need to see the biggest success going forward. So this is quite an interesting moment, I think, that we're at, and it's a time for us to ask, what is it that we're actually protecting now?
Yeah, great question. And I suppose what's what responsibility do leaders within cybersecurity have in defending those sort of democratic values?
So I think we all have responsibility to citizens, and we're cybersecurity leaders, but we're also citizens. So I think we're all responsible. It's a shared civic responsibility to understand and to protect the democratic values that we have. So I wouldn't say it's just cybersecurity professionals or leaders. I think as citizens, we're all responsible for that. So for having those conversations in our communities, in schools, in our workplaces, and voting in elections, I think that's just we focus a lot on election security, but it's not just about voting, obviously, because democratic participation is much wider than that. We all have the opportunity to go and speak to our MPs, to take part in civic events, to build community within the areas that we live. So I think we all have a responsibility, Jay, and I know that many cybersecurity professionals take that responsibility very seriously because we do tend to be very purpose driven and we understand the value of the work that we're doing to society for society. But I think it's a shared responsibility that we all have.
Yeah, and I don't think you can help but not be emotionally involved in this industry when you're involved in it, and that drives more purpose and vision for sure. So going a little bit more onto maybe mental resilience within leadership. We know obviously behind every cybersecurity leader, there's always a story of resilience. Pressures is immense. Burnout is very real, more and more than ever before. So, in terms of surviving and thriving within cyber, what are the boundaries that maybe you've set yourself along the way that have added to your and I guess saved your mental health, if you will?
And I think that's a great question, Jane. I think you're touching on the key there. So it's about being able to set boundaries. So setting boundaries is a core leadership skill, essentially, and it's also an act of self-respect. So being able to set boundaries is absolutely key, and it's part of having that resilience or being able to build that resilience. I've learned to really protect my own time, so to know the things that I do in order to look after myself, to take care of myself, because you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of your team, of anyone else. So that's something that I've really deeply learned to do, and also how to set boundaries as a core leadership skill. I think it's being able to prioritize and being able to align what you do to your goals and objectives is also really valuable, because it enables you to say no to things that are distractions or that are maybe not aligned to your strategic goals, and to say yes to the things that really energize you and that really make an impact and add value to your organization, to your team, to broader society. So I think it's just having that self-awareness has been something that I've gained over time, and it's been really valuable to me. Your question about, or your point about burnout is really important. I think we talk a lot about burnout in the cybersecurity industry. I think there are many other professionals that deal with pressures, and we look at the pressures that teachers, that doctors are under. We're all struggling sometimes with underinvestment, with a lack of resources and so on. So I think it's important that we recognise the pressures that other professionals face, even others in our organisation. It's not always cybersecurity that's facing pressures. There's pressures throughout, and we always need to be looking at how we can address those challenges systemically. So one of the core responsibilities of a leader is to create an environment where people have the resources and the environment that they need in order to do their work. So I think it's important that we look to leaders within our organisations to build those environments to help address some of the challenges around burnout, recognising that it's not just cybersecurity professionals that are at risk of burnout. There's many others that are working very, very hard in organisations that are also dealing with some of the same pressures. And it's how we design better workplaces, how we have leaders that create those environments in our workplaces. I think that's a question that maybe we need to have more broadly than just talking about burnout in cybersecurity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of your own situation and wearing various hats, if you will, how do you juggle what is obviously a demanding founder role, board advisory services, community leadership? How do you work through that without experiencing burnout yourself?
So it's a great question. I think it goes back to really being quite purpose driven, really being careful about what I choose to spend my time on, making sure that what I spend my time on is aligned to the goals and objectives that I have, and also really looking after myself. So making time for exercise is really important to me. So making time for myself in my daily routine, and that helps me to retain that clarity of thinking that I need. So exercise is really personally really important to me, but everyone has their own thing that they like doing. And I think what's important is just to make sure that you've got that space for yourself, that you've got that balance in your life as well. So everyone's life is different. We're all juggling different demands, different responsibilities, but making sure that you're thinking strategically really about what you want to achieve in each of the different areas of your life, and you're devoting time accordingly to them. So maintaining that sense of balance, looking after yourself, and being able to prioritize what you spend your time on, that's how I think about it.
I think just to add to that, I speak to a lot of leaders in the space that sometimes struggle to say no. They do want to contribute to communities and making a difference, but they're always saying yeah. So briefly, how easy is it to say no without having that guilt?
Yeah, it's a great question, Warren, and it's certainly something that earlier stages in my career I found it really difficult. I found it even difficult to decline meeting invites if I would get a meeting invite. In work, I thought I had to accept everything, so I'd end up with lots of conflicting meetings in my calendar. And really being able to prioritize and being able to explain why you can't do something, but always looking to help, I think. So it's not just about saying no, it's saying, well, maybe I can't do that myself, but here's someone else that would be great. And that enables you to create an opportunity for someone else as well to share your platform. So even if you can't do everything yourself because you recognize that you need to prioritize, you don't have to just say no. You can say, well, here's other people that could do it. Or we could maybe not this week, but maybe in 2 months' time, that kind of conversation. But it's certainly something that I found difficult to do in earlier stages of my career. But I've got a very good sense now of what I need to focus on, and I've got no problem saying no. But I try not to say no. I try to always look for ways that I can help, even if that is not necessarily via being able to spend my own time on something. I can maybe suggest someone else that can.
Just to finish on this subject, do you think it's still a taboo subject, burnout?
It's a good question. I think there has been a lot of fantastic work, like really amazing work that has been done in recent years that has helped us to move beyond mental health and burnout being taboo subjects. So I think burnout certainly was, but mental health more broadly as well. The conversation has really changed in the industry. And I would point in particular to some of the wonderful work that's been done in CISEC. Just within the last couple of weeks, CISEC have announced their partnership with PTSD resolution to help with some of the mental health challenges that people face within the industry. So it's fantastic to see those conversations being led by the Chartered Institute, by respected leaders within the industry. And I really think that's helping us to move beyond that, Jay. So it's a fantastic question. And I'm sure you've asked it because you realise that things are things are moving, and we are having conversations like this in this kind of forum and else.
I think above all else in the last few years, that has absolutely been, there's been a sea change in people's understanding, people's ability to talk about it, and certainly more importantly, people's acceptance of this. I think there's been huge strides made, really, for sure. Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important because it's fundamental to being able to build resilience. When we think about what we're trying to do, we need to be thinking about how we can build resilience in our teams, as well as it's not just building resilience in technology or thinking about resilience in that sense. It's also thinking fundamentally about the people that we lead, and how we can support and help them. And burnout is absolutely not a badge of honor. It's something that if there's burnout in an organization, then it's a question for leadership. What's been done to help the people in the organization?
Yeah, it's a great comment, that, actually, because I think many of us have come, certainly myself, and looking at myself when I was younger, and it was seen as a bit of a work yourself into the floor, and it's such a poignant phrase that it was seen as a badge of honor, and I think we've come a long way since then, which is great.
And I appreciate we've been cutting through quite a lot of the noise to reveal some of the hard truths out there. And we've touched on some of the other myths and misconceptions. But are there any other bigger myths or misconceptions or areas of cyber that are still misunderstood at this point, Heather?
I wouldn't say misunderstood necessarily, but what I would really like to see is more convergence between the conversations that we have in cyber and the conversations that happen in IT and technology more broadly. So when we're thinking about tech, I'd like us to be thinking about tech more than just sort of cyber IT. So I think the more that we can come together with tech communities, the more that we can think about a technological change as we have done in this conversation, the better. So we're stronger together. So I'd like us to continue to have these collaborative discussions with technology communities and technology professionals. So not just focusing on cyber or being siloed in our thinking. Because when we see cybersecurity as a team sport, technology is a team sport as well. Being part of a democratic society is a team sport. We have to come together and have these conversations across communities. So I don't think we're missing anything, but I just like us to see. I'd like to see more of that going forward.
No, I appreciate you sharing. And someone who's worked as a security leader, CISO in the past, how can CISOs and vendors perhaps more align in terms of effective communication and understanding each other?
Yeah, that's also a great question, Warren. And to me, it comes back to that point about community. So I've never seen a distinction between end users, vendors, whatever. We're all part of the information security community. When we're working in our roles, we have frameworks, we have regulations that we have to adhere to. But it's all about being part of a community and having standards and practices and sharing information and knowledge. So I've always really valued the vendor relationships and conversations that I've had. And one of the reasons that I love InfoSec, you mentioned InfoSec, Jay, it's a great opportunity to keep up to date with what's happening in the vendor landscape, to have conversations with vendors, to see what's out there, to learn from every kind of interaction that you have. So I think it's really about going back to the point about community and relationships. You have really, you have strategic relationships with your vendors, with your peers within the industry, and it's really thinking about it in terms of relationships and community. So I've never liked this distinction between end users and vendors. It's very important that when we're working in organizations and in our roles that we're conscious of the frameworks and the obligations that we have. But it's also very important that we're thinking more broadly, keeping up to date on the landscape out there, and often vendors are very helpful for doing that.
And the landscape's obviously changed a lot over certainly the last couple of years. It's been a tough market. In terms of what we're seeing more in terms of fractional CISOs and BISO roles, are these roles more of a sign that cybersecurity is evolving, or is it just marketing spin created within a challenging tech market? And I guess there's a lot of skepticism about this. How important is execution and setting clear expectations within these roles?
So I certainly don't think it's marketing spin. I've seen the value of CISOs of BISOs for many years in organizations. I think there's definitely a need to understand the roles and the responsibilities and to be clear on roles and responsibilities. But I definitely don't think it's marketing spin. I think the role of a business information security officer is absolutely critical in an organization. And if you're lucky enough to be able to hire one, then I wholeheartedly recommend it. So I think the market's it's always changing, and it's important that we're clear on roles and responsibilities, and that's where professional bodies and frameworks can be really useful. So when the UK market, we've got the UK Cybersecurity Council, we've got the specialisms that have been developed in the cyber careers pathways, we've got international frameworks as well that we can look to. But I think fundamentally, it's the market's always changing. There's value, absolutely value, all the different roles that we see out there, and we just need to be keeping up to date in terms of our professional frameworks and our mappings to make sure that essentially that when people are hiring BISOs into an organization, that they've got a job description, they understand the role and the responsibilities and so on. But absolutely not marketing spin. I think there's huge value in these roles.
And look, building resilience is more than just bouncing back. It's about thriving through complexity. And we understand you've gone out now, you've founded your own business. Congratulations on that. So why did you decide to go out on your own, and what gaps and problems are you looking to address?
Yeah, so fundamentally looking to reframe resilience as a strategic advantage. So as you see, it's not just about recovery, it's about readiness as well. And we see many organizations that are treating risk reactively. So I wanted to really offer that practical values-led support, which combines technical depth with strategic insight. So fundamentally, that's the reason that I decided to go down that road. And I think that when we think about post-pandemic and amid the AI disruption that we see, resilience now includes adaptability, ethical design, concepts such as anticipatory governance. So as you say, it's not just about bouncing back, it's about really thriving through complexity. And I think being able to experiment and to learn quickly, being able to deal with uncertainty and with change is something that's a skill that I've picked up throughout my career. So I'm looking to use my skills and experience to help others in that.
And what's been the toughest lesson you've learned since being a founder, for instance?
So you have to do everything. You have to do everything as a CISO as well, but you have to do even more of everything. So it's certainly being able to balance the responsibilities alongside delivering the best work that you can is certainly it's an interesting learning curve. So having to do lots of other things as well as the work that you're there to do has been interesting. But it's great. It's an opportunity to learn whatever you're doing. You're always learning. So, and that's what really drives me fundamentally. Is I love learning.
And we discussed earlier in the call the ISC2, for instance. What do they actually do, and why is it important to the UK ecosystem?
Yeah. So ISC2 shapes policy, connects practice to regulation, for example, is one of the biggest advocacy organisations in the world for skills, for diversity, for professional standards. So it's really about raising the bar collectively, and that's why I've always valued my involvement with ISC2. I've volunteered as an exam development volunteer for a number of years now, so being able to help with exam development, being able to help with the advisory council as well is really about thinking about how we can achieve the strategic goals of the organisation in the UK. So it's been able to give back and to add value and to help the UK cyber ecosystem as well, using the power of a global organisation that is really committed to raising standards in the cybersecurity profession globally.
And are there any policy blind spots that you feel need a bit more pushing to change in the sector?
What I would love to see, I wouldn't say it's blind spots, but I would love to see more practitioner voices in policy making and more joined up thinking across sectors. So I think the more that we can have practitioner voices included in policy making, the more kind of practical joined up approaches we'll see. So I think sometimes there's a disconnect between the ambitions, strategic ambitions, and the frontline practical realities. So I would love to see more practitioner voices engaged in policy making. And I think by doing that, by looking at real world pilots, by evaluating outcomes more broadly than just thinking about compliance, that would really help us to create meaningful and workable solutions. So fundamentally it's about creating space for practitioner input and for diverse perspectives. I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing academia, for instance, playing a role. Your organisations partner with them to help the next generation of talent, of course, but also help governments to develop policies. And as a final thought, is there anything further that industry leaders or even industry professionals can do in terms of doing better to connect with government policies with the real world frontline practices?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Warren. So I think when we think about the value of academic research and how we can translate research into practical, actionable strategies, I think that's where we need to focus. So I think as industry leaders and as practitioners, that's where we can really add value through academic engagement. So all the fantastic research that goes on in universities, thinking about how we can translate that into actionable practical strategies. And that happens through engagement with universities, with academics, understanding the research that's there, and also bringing the industry insight into how we can make this actionable within organisations, within society, so that those joined up conversations, I think, are critical.
And from a talent perspective, how important is it for organisations to actually work with academia to ensure that there's communication, that frontline challenges are being communicated to universities so that they can share those challenges with the students to best prepare them before work?
Yeah, that's a topic that's very close to my heart. So in terms of how we develop talent coming into the industry and how we work with schools, with universities and so on to develop that pipeline of future talents, I think it's critical to your question. It's absolutely critical that we're working with schools and with universities on that and having that two-way dialogue, because the field changes so quickly that we need, even as practitioners, we always have to invest in our learning and our skills development in order to keep up to date. So we need to be feeding that back into the education system as well, into the pipeline of future talent. One of the reasons that mentoring is so important actually as well is in order to bring that real world experience into the development of future cybersecurity professionals. So it's absolutely critical. And I think there's great initiatives that are out there that are helping with that. One program that I'm personally really committed to is the STEM Ambassadors program. So I've seen over a number of years how effective that has been at helping to develop that pipeline of future talent.
And as we come to the back end of the podcast, Heather, a couple of questions really. I suppose you're standing for election at the UK Cybersecurity Council. Could we ask you maybe to tell us what inspired you to take this step and what you're looking to achieve from that?
So two things really. I think firstly, just the concept of an election. I think an election is a fantastic thing. It's a fundamental part of living in a democratic society. So any opportunity to stand for election, I think it's great. I think the fact that there is an election and democracy is a powerful force and in all its forms, that is reason enough to stand and to take part in an election, regardless of who you vote for. So I think that's something that really inspired me. And secondly, as well, because I'm really committed to inclusive excellence in the profession. So that has been important to me throughout my career. Having that commitment to the highest standards and to ethical practice and to leading inclusively and all the things that the UK Cybersecurity Council is committed to. Its mission, its purpose, what the current board is working on as well, I think is just so inspiring. So the opportunity to contribute to that is too good an opportunity to pass up. So when I saw the call for nominations and I saw that my skills and experience could fit with that, I decided to put myself forward and to stand for election, which is, I think elections are great. We should have more of them and we should all vote.
Well, we think that you've done incredible work throughout your career, and we know there's certainly more ahead of you. You've got the fall back and secure Cyber Connect community. We're, of course, going to reach out to our network to help raise awareness of what you're doing, and hopefully you get some votes there.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck with that, Heather. And look, in terms of Resilionix and the future, what does that look like for you now? Yeah, what's the sort of the vision going forward?
So our mission is really to empower organisations to build resilience by design. So combining strategy and systems thinking and cyber expertise. So we'll be helping leaders to build trust in complex environments. So there's much more to come in that. Watch this space.
Absolutely. And where else can our listeners get hold of you? We obviously know LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else that they can reach you?
So I think any of the community events or any of the public events that I take part in, I'm always really happy to connect and to speak to people. Like we've met in person at the events that have been held, and it's a great opportunity to have a conversation. So I'm always happy to have a conversation at any of the events that I attend or community events. Available on LinkedIn, yes, and always really happy to help. So if there's anything that I can help with, then just let me know. And
amazing. Well, Heather, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you, and I'm certain the community, all our listeners will have got a huge amount of value in today's episode. If people want to continue the discussion and of course for more sustained engagement, as always, we invite you to join the secure Cyber Connect community, where we offer a range of collaborative solutions for tech and security professionals at no cost. Expansive community access, mutual mentoring, online networking, and a range of exclusive interviews such as this, with panel discussions and masterclasses coming later in 2025. If people want to learn more, gain access, join the community. Thank you very much, everybody.
If you're struggling with cultural, technological, or talent acquisition challenges, reach out to the Secure Cyber Connect team, where we offer advice and guidance, and we're here to help.